We're excited to be here.
Sorry, it just started. Okay.
No, that's okay. That's all right. So I am super excited to be here, Janelle. I really appreciate the invite and talking about the market center of the future and what that looks like for market centers. So a little bit about me. My name is Brett Bishop. That is my contact information. That is my direct cell phone number. You're free to text or call me. Now, I will say that most of the people on this call are in Texas and you're an hour behind. So just appreciate that, if it's too late, it might be really late for me. And that is my email address. I'm a third generation realtor, licensed since 2003. I am part of the original core group of investors in my market center, 871 in Port Charlotte, Punta Gorda, which is on the southwest coast of Florida. And part of that original investment group means I've been here since 2010, since we opened. I'm a 3-term ALC member, consistently in the top 20% of our producing agents. I'm the lead contracts trainer. My OP and broker also does contracts. I'm a lead trainer of everything in the market center. And I'm a 3-time Bold graduate. I have been in some capacity a technology person in our market center, right? So technology ambassador, director of technology, and now officially MCTT, as that's an official leadership position, and I'm grateful for that. And all of that so that I am an agent, a leader, a trainer, a student, and the tech guy. Now, I tell you all that, not to boast about anything, but just so that you understand that when it comes to the market center and the training environments, I know them from pretty much every perspective. We all know that KW is a tech-forward real estate company, and our market centers and training rooms really need to demonstrate that. And one thing that always comes up, I know, is that when we think high tech or tech forward, we think high dollar, and that is not necessarily the case. In fact, I strive to actually research all of the options that are out there in tech hardware so that we're leading with revenue and utilizing the options that we have in that great, big, vast world of technology so that we can use technology for whatever budget a market center has. And another thing that I like to do when I'm in a market center is if there's any existing technology that we can repurpose, then I definitely want to do that and save the leadership in that market center some money. A lot of times what we'll find is something that may not work in the training room, we can repurpose in a consultation room or a team leader's office or something like that, so that we can get that repurposed somewhere else and maybe upgrade the tech in a different part of the market center and save some money. So creating and implementing a tech forward market center for me is about moving from E to P. As we move from entrepreneurial to purposeful, that is all about mastery. When I first thought about market center of the future, I didn't set out to invent new technology. There's people a lot smarter than me that I'm sure will do that and set the world on fire. That was not my intention. I instead got purposeful about embracing existing technology and cabling, hardware to implement the market center of the future now so that we could use it now in this hybrid training environment and not just merely think of it as a concept for the future. So in the MREA, Millionaire Real Estate Agent, page 292, it talks about mastery. Seeking mastery is a process and a path, not an event. Therefore, staying on the path and working from the process becomes your focus. So with that, we are always thinking about new ways to improve the teaching and learning experiences in our training spaces. That process leads to constantly researching and experimenting with new technology. Just as technology is ever evolving, so too is the process. So what does all of this mean for a value proposition for a market center? There's a lot of parts of having a high tech or a tech forward market center, training spaces, buyer consultation rooms that I think are often overlooked. Sometimes it's a limiting belief because we have a budget that we're working with and we don't think that we can have a nice tech forward space in our market center. But when we think about the value that it creates, I think that a lot of these upgrades actually become priceless. So let's look at a few of those. So first and foremost, when we think about our training rooms, we are talking about an engaging learning space for all agents in leadership. And one thing that Janelle is keen on is these upgrades that actually reach all the different types of learning styles that some people have. And so those are the kind of things that we focus on when we think of the market center of the future. We also have a well-equipped space for meetings and regional events. So I can tell you, I was in my region's ALC clinic yesterday. And what I discovered from a lot of the market centers around my region was that there was, when we're in a meeting like that, where we're trying to answer a question and the presenter asks us for participation, we found that camera angles were off and people were standing in front of the only camera that they had in the training room and were looking at their shoulder or their hip. And the microphone maybe is only a webcam mic, and it sets up kind of an awkward engagement with the audience and the presenter. So those are all things that can be improved with these type of upgrades. And believe it or not, the technology is actually pretty easy to use. Now it's relative, of course. However, we lean on our market center tech trainers to present, to either teach you how to use the technology in your market center and your training space. We can also create videos for that to make it super easy to learn, and then also put together easy manuals that we can leave in a consultation room or a training room, that sort of thing. So one of the biggest pieces of value in all of this that I think is often overlooked or maybe not even realized is that these upgrades create a space for agents to host buyer, seller, investor type seminars for lead generation purposes. It makes a really nice environment that they're proud to bring the general public in and have those lead generation type events. So to get through that first part, I would open it up to any questions and ahas if we have anything in the chat. And Janelle, I don't see the chat, or are we all good? Is there anything in there?
Sorry, I have a cough drop in, but there's no questions.
Okay. Okay, well, I will roll along, but if anything pops up that you think we ought to get to, just stop me. I will not get offended by any interruption. I appreciate it.
You got it.
Okay, so I'm going to jump into some before and afters here. And if anybody sees something that looks familiar, maybe you've been to a training room like this, or it is your training room. This certainly isn't to pick on any market center or anything like that. It's really just to kind of show the vision of what you have and what it could be. So this is a market center that I did recently. And as we look at this, now these were actually notes from my fellow MCTT that is based out of this market center. And we worked together to create this vision for his leadership. So all of these notes that you see on these photos were actually sent. They were put on the photos by him. It's Brandon Long. And he sent these photos to me all doctored up with these notes so that we could kind of work on this vision together. And it was really helpful. So this is the before. So the projector screen, this actually isn't a screen. This is still part of the wall. This is an all gray wall. So when the projector, which is mounted back here, was on this, because it's a gray wall, you got like yellowing in the color and things like that. And then they did have a decent sound system here. But one thing I've found, I'm finding across a lot of market centers, are either podiums or technology carts that hold all of the brains of whatever system they have in place, right? And what's, in my eyes, where that's limiting is when we think about, for those of us that have ever taken Train the Presenter, we like to have room to move and engage our audience. So we like to pace and plan. And when we're tied to the equipment like this, it makes it really difficult to do. And also, as you'll see in some upcoming slides, some market centers, their training space, the area in the front of the room where the presenter actually has is already so limited. And then there's this big obnoxious technology cart there. So these are all things that we try to eliminate and think about what technology we have that can actually replace these and actually get all of this out of our way. The other thing we see is lots of cords, right? So we got tripping hazards here. We're basically chained to the wall in configurations like this. So those are things that we're going to try to rectify. So now when we look at the after, what we see, and I'm going to jump back just for a second because I want to highlight something here. Now, the OP of this market center, I talked to her directly too as we were figuring this out. And one of the things I learned about her is she's somebody who trains a lot throughout our region and actually throughout the Keller Williams system nationwide. And she's not a fan of, excuse me, and it really brought it to light for me. And I completely agree. She's not a fan of having a podium or some kind of centralized place like this where one person sits or stands and kind of has this authoritative presence over the audience. She's more a fan of like the coffee talk, panel mastermind type of presence in the front of the training room. So when we keep all of that in mind with our upgrades, we get something that looks like this. Okay, so we've gotten rid of the projector and the projection screen. We've actually moved the desks around so that we have one central hallway, and there's only 2 rows of desks here, the way that this, or sorry, 2 sets of desks in each row, the way that this works. So we got 3 rows and 2 desks across. So you don't really need access from the ends because there's not much room. You don't really have to walk down a long hall of desks or anything. So we have all this room open, and then we get rid of the projector. We get rid of the screen. We have 2 high definition televisions up here. And I use a specific type of television. I'm a big fan of Vizio TVs. I have been for years. I have them all throughout my office and my home. And the main reason I love Vizio is when we think about leading with revenue and we think about value, Vizios are high definition TVs. They come in pretty much every size that we would want. And they natively have Google Chromecast and Apple AirPlay built in. So they accommodate every device that we would have without needing any other adapters. All right, so we got the TVs here for each row. And then this now becomes the central hub of the system instead of that cart that's kind of in the way for us up at the front of the room. So now what we're able to get is we're able to get this more conversational type presence at the front of the room. We still have a little table to hold our keyboard, our mouse, our peripherals, things like that. But we get the camera, we get the presentation monitor. Sometimes this is referred to as a confidence monitor. We get all of that, the computer, everything up out of the way. And the key here with this confidence monitor is that the presenter never has to turn their back on their audience because they have that up as they're facing the audience. Another thing that we learn and train the presenter. So as you see in this close-up over here, this now is the central hub, and we get our mini PC on here. So this is actually a really fast, really powerful Windows-based computer. And then we have a USB switcher here. So I'm not going to jump too much into all the nerding out details of the technology. Janelle and I could talk about that for hours, I know, but I'll lose some people. But anyway, the main point is just to know that everything that this system does is pretty much in this main hub right here, but it's up and out of the way. Now, I will tell you, this does get cleaner than this. I actually took these photos before I completely wrapped up the job, but it's mostly so that you get the gist of what the transformation looks like. Okay, so this one was one of my favorites. Another part of investigating training rooms and really looking at what would be the most purposeful way to train and learn and that sort of thing, it doesn't always involve the technology. So in this example, we actually completely shifted the training room because it was laid out in a way that really wasn't all that functional. And when we look at this photo over here, you can actually see, I don't know if you can really tell from the photo, but there is only about 4 feet from the front of this table to this wall. And again, train the presenter, having room to pace and plant and engage your audience. There's not a lot of room here. Also, between the monitors, there's not much room. So if you need to bring over an easel or a dry erase board or something like that, you're blocking one of the TVs. Other thing that you can't really see that's kind of off the photo here is this is where the doors are that access the training room over here on the left side of this photo. And what that meant is that if anybody was sneaking out early or coming in late, they're actually having to come in here and walk all the way across between all these people in these tight rows. Okay. So and this was actually an idea from the team leader there and the MCTT there. Again, one of the beautiful things is as a leadership group, we're always working together and consulting to figure out what works best for everybody. But they had the idea of what would it look like if we flip it. So I told them on that initial consultation, let's just move all the tables around and see what we get. So this was that first day, and we moved the tables around. And you can see that now we get this much more open training space. The doors are back here, so they're in the back of the room for sneaking out early or coming in late. And you also have now this distance for the presenter is about 6 to 8 feet from this wall to the front of these tables. And it makes it a lot better for the presenter. It also, with this wide hallway in between the desks, in between the tables, sorry, we actually get enough room to even set up a panel here for panel discussions and things like that. So this one was a favorite of mine because we were actually able to flip the entire thing, reorient how everything is laid out, and just get a better layout for the training room. So now you can see we have the wall mounted TVs. We actually moved them from here. Okay. And we put them over here. And now we've got about 6 feet of space in between each of the monitors, which gives us plenty of room to set up, again, that conversation type atmosphere. And we have plenty of room to set up, 4 to 6 chairs for a panel conversation or something like that. And again, here's that central hub. Now, I will tell you this one was challenging, not only for the orientation of the room, but also this extended ceiling here, but it worked out. Everything came out great. And then here you can kind of get a glimpse of the added space that you have now as a presenter. So it actually looking at it, it's definitely about 8 feet, if not a little more. And then here's another one. This, again, we have this big monster podium, and that's where the computer was. They had a monitor, or actually, sorry, they did not even have a monitor on this one. So what happened in this scenario is the presenter actually has to look back at that screen behind them. So again, we get into that dynamic of turning your back to your audience, which is something that disengages them and just not a good scenario to have. So we can also see how deep this room was. So imagine my eyesight is failing miserably every day, as you can see from the glasses. Imagine sitting in this back of the room back here and trying to see this TV. Now, this TV is huge. It's about a 75-inch TV, but when you're sitting in the back, you can't see it. So what we did was we actually kept their TV. Now, in this case, they already had, and a lot of the market centers will be familiar with this, a Dell Optiplex, a small PC, not quite a mini PC, but very small. We were able to repurpose that. So again, always thinking about leading with revenue, and we repurposed that and saved about $600 on this overall job for them. So we have a presentation monitor. Now they do have the podium here. However, there's nothing in there anymore that they need to have it there for. They just didn't have a table that we could utilize now for that conversation environment. All right. And then we ceiling mounted a TV. This is a 55-inch in the back here. So now the back half of the room has a nice monitor that they can see everything as well. And then on this little inset photo right here, this is just to give you an idea. One of the things that I've created in this implementation is a wall connection panel that any guest trainer, any agent in the office that wants to run a seminar or a class themselves, anything like that, any laptop, PC, Mac can be plugged in to these connections and actually hijack the entire ecosystem, which means taking over all the monitors that are in the room, take over the ceiling mounted microphone that picks up every detail of the room, and take over the cameras that are in the room. So that's a really nice feature and goes to that value proposition that we were talking about with getting agents involved and creating a nice lead generation space for them. Right, so this was my most recent. This office is actually amazing. This is down in South Florida, and any of the other collaboration spaces you go to, their bullpen area, their offices, they are ultra modern and just absolutely beautiful. But quite often is the case, we get to the training space and it's what amounts to a big empty box. So we can see we had a lot of wires down here, and we had a TV cart for now and things like that. So we transformed this space a bit too. All right, so now we have our ceiling mounted presentation TV. We have our TVs here on the front wall for the audience. And then over here, just right here is actually that wall panel connection that I showed in the previous slide. And what they were using for their camera tripod, they don't need anymore because now the camera is mounted up here on the TV. And the beautiful thing about this camera is it's less than $200, and it is a pan tilt zoom camera, which means it will actually follow the instructor around or whoever has taken control of it. It uses hand gestures to actually engage control of it. And it's just a really awesome piece of hardware that's actually value packed and really affordable. I have been in market centers that have $3,000 pan tilt zoom cameras that are sitting there in a fixed position and doing basically what a $60 Logitech webcam can do. Right? You've seen that, Janelle, right? So again, these upgrades, a high-tech, tech-forward market center does not have to be absolutely expensive. We hit all price points, and a total job like most of what I've shown you is $3,000 to $4,000, depending on the TVs and that sort of thing. Yeah. So excellent. Excellent question, Crystal. I appreciate it. And that is something I plan to do. I did not have time to put it all together, but I will. So I'm going to put my email in the chat. Anybody that would like to reach out to me directly, and I will also get it to Janelle. But I had gotten on the MCTT group and promised that I would provide some value piece in this presentation. So I am actually going to share my products list with everybody. And I'll have different price points in those as well. Okay, so this is an upcoming project, and this might look familiar to some of you too, as far as, you know, seeing something similar like this in your own area. So I will say that the leadership here did get creative, and I'm proud of them for coming up with something that gets off the floor. We got a camera up here that's mounted in the ceiling, right? And again, though, we've got this kind of old school situation where we got the projector and the screen. Now, I don't mean to harp on projectors and screens as being really a bad thing, but we all know if we've been in a more modern training center where we do have TVs, we don't have to worry about the lighting, right? When we have a projector and a screen that's up on a wall like that, especially in this configuration where you have lights right in front of it, you normally have to turn those lights off. And if the lights aren't configured so that you can turn one row off, you have to turn off the entire room, and now you get a really dark space, and it's not conducive to everybody's learning styles. So that's why we go to the high definition TVs as big as we can and try to recreate the same type of projection on the wall, but now in a high definition TV that is not dependent on lighting. Again, we have this big computer cart. Now, I will say that in this scenario, that's a little better than some of the ones that we saw in the other slideshows, is that they do have a monitor for the presenter, so that's nice. Presenter doesn't have to turn their back, so that's a step up. But we also see that we have, you know, kind of this mess of all these wires and everything. And you think about it from when I speak about that value proposition, as far as agents wanting to use the space for seminars for their customers, this is probably not the most proud situation that they would feel comfortable bringing people to look at. So these are all just things that they're quite common, but they can be easily remedied, and it's really not expensive to do. All right, this is another future project coming up. So this is now this is kind of a unique space. Again, this is a market center in South Florida that is ultra modern. Every one of these offices is like full of glass and red and white furniture, and it's absolutely gorgeous. And this training room, they've done the best that they could with the limited space they have. Now, it's a very small training room, but it can be easily upgraded. And honestly, because of the size, we're not going to replace this TV. This is a monster TV. It's a 75 or 80 inch. And the room's not so big that you need any more than that. But we are going to get rid of this cart and get our presentation monitor, which becomes the hub of everything. We're going to get that hanging from the ceiling. Now, here's one of those situations where I talked about a $3,000 camera that is really just facing forward and acting like a $60 Logitech. So we're going to remedy all this stuff too. And a lot of times these things can be sold to churches and event companies and things like that. So you could always try to get some money back on those sorts of things. All right. And then not only is all the technology with the TVs and all that, that makes it great for students, but as instructors, we can actually look at different types of input devices that make it a lot easier for us to train and also more engaging with the audience that we have, the agents in front of us, whoever it is that we're teaching. So this is called an air mouse. This thing is super handy. One of my fellow MCTTs in South Florida actually brought this to my attention. And It has all the functions of a mouse right in the palm of your hand. So you don't even have to go back to that table unless you need to type in keys or something like that. But we know a lot of times in our training, we're just scrolling around and pointing and clicking on stuff. And so something like this makes it a lot easier for us to stay engaged with our audience and still be able to control what we need to on the screen. Now, this is actually my newest toy. I still have it in the box. I have not opened it yet. I'm really excited to play with this. But for those of you that don't know, and actually Janelle brought this to my attention, so I'm going to give her props for that. It opened up a world of training ideas to me. Zoom actually has a whiteboard feature. So if you think about, a lot of our training spaces, even if you do have nice TVs, you might still have a whiteboard on the wall. Well, what if I could take those nice TVs and actually share a Zoom screen and turn them into whiteboards? The hardest thing about that is if you've ever, okay, so we've all tried to sign our name in DocuSign, right? With our finger, or when we sign a receipt or something like that, right? And it doesn't even look like human writing, right? It's horrible. So when you try to write on a whiteboard, say that 10 times fast, write on a whiteboard. If you try to do that on the whiteboard feature of Zoom with a mouse, it's that same kind of awkward gesture and it just doesn't look great. So there's a lot of these digital tablets on the market that are actually an input device for your computer. Now, this one specifically is Bluetooth and USB. So it allows you the freedom of being Bluetooth and you don't need to be corded to the computer, which in a situation that you've seen from what we've been implementing is you wouldn't really be able to attach it to the computer that's on the monitor. Now, I will say that in those connections that I have on the wall, I actually do have USBs that come from that computer so you can plug into the wall. However, this is nice because it is completely cordless. And it comes with a nice pen. This pen does not take batteries. You don't have to keep it charged. I have no idea how that works, but I don't care as long as it works. What makes it nice is you have this tablet and you can just write on it. It shows you where your cursor is, so you don't kind of have to fumble for that. And then the minute the pen makes contact with the board, you're writing on the whiteboard. And now we've just created digital whiteboards on the wall that our audience is looking at. And it's just another great training tool for us as presenters. Leadership, you think about leading classes, whether it's an ALC clinic or you're having, a regional training event in your office, something like that. All right. Another really popular item is a Stream Deck, and they come in 3 different sizes. All right. And basically what this does is this creates shortcuts that can be used for any kind of software. I actually have one. I can't do it right now because I'm sharing my screen, but I actually have a profile on my Stream Deck in front of me here, and I have 2 separate cameras hooked up. And Zoom actually allows you to switch back and forth between cameras that you have attached. So what the Stream Deck does, it actually allows me to program a button so that with just one button push, it will actually cycle through the cameras that I have. So that's a really nice feature too. And what makes that important, again, thinking about the ALC clinic from yesterday, a lot of the instances where somebody was trying to participate, we've got a camera that's focused on either the team leader or whoever's hosting, the room. And we've got people in the training room that are trying to speak and you can't hear them. You can't see them. The camera, the main camera stuck in an awkward position, whatever. This actually allows you to push one button and switch to an alternate view that you might have. So a lot of times in these training environments, we're actually putting in a secondary camera that is then the classroom camera too. So you're able to switch back and forth. And this device makes it super easy. Awesome. Thank you for putting that in there, Crystal. And I'm actually in that product list. Like I said, I'm going to have different price points to things, and I'll do my best to put those links in there too, because I know it makes it handy for everybody. All right. Okay, so this is actually one of the conference rooms, consultation rooms from that really small training room that I just showed. And while it's beautiful, it's ultra modern. We got all our KW colors kicking it there. My eyes, my OCD as a tech person and little background, I was a car stereo installer for about 15 years before I got into real estate. So when I see these wires hanging out, I go nuts. I can't handle it. So when I'm looking at this environment, this is gorgeous. But then I see all this mess over here, right? And all of this stuff can be fixed so easily so that your conference rooms, your team leader's office for sharing their screen when they're on a recruiting appointment with somebody, all this stuff can be cleaned up so that we're really showing a tech forward office. Okay, so here's a little snapshot from the conference room in my actual market center. And this is something that I absolutely love. So one of the things that we run into a lot in our market centers is agents wanting to reserve conference rooms or buyer consultation rooms or training rooms or whatever. A couple of years ago, I discovered this Joan device. And what's really cool, you can see this is an electronic device, and it's actually mounted on this glass window right next to the door because it uses a magnetic sticker, and you stick that to the glass, and then this sticks right onto that magnetic sticker. And this is completely controlled through Calendly, Google Calendar, lots of different options. And you can see here the meet now, meet later. You can actually schedule right from the device too. It's a touch screen. So that's a really handy feature. Here's a snapshot of what that looks like. So here's the device. And then on our agent resource website, we actually put a tab in here for conference rooms. And then we allow the agents to just go right here to reserve their conference room. And then that will show up on the device. Just check the chat here real quick. Do you have any systems or ideas on control for cameras and mics in a second location? Joe, you got me thinking there, buddy. I'm gonna have to think about that. So I do have things set up to where we can, when you say in a second location, are we talking about just another room in the same market center? Two MCs that train at the same time. No. Short answer, no. And here's the real estate answer. I don't have that answer, but I have a great team around me, and I'm going to get that answer for you. Right?
What about the owl, Brett? Maybe that might work.
Yeah. So, does that do 2 locations though, Janelle? Yeah, I think what Joe's talking about is if I have 2 separate market centers, can I be in? Joe, are you saying if I'm in one, will it simulcast the other? Or are you? I'm not quite sure what Joe's talking about with that. So maybe Joe, you can kind of expand on that a little bit. I'll run through these last few points here. So let me go back here. One of the things I did want to get into, let me just come out of here, and I was going to go through some of these other options. So are we still seeing my screen okay? Okay, awesome. So here is the Joan website. I've heard in the MCTT groups, there's lots of different software for scheduling conference rooms. Teams is one of them. There's a lot of different software that you can get on iPad devices and have your own. Here's the Owl camera that Janelle's talking about. This is an amazing camera. It's obviously at a different price point, but some market centers have that budget, and that's comfortable. But what's really cool about this camera is the microphone is built in, and it does a speaker view and a really wide shot, right? It's not full 360, is it?
Yeah,
yeah, it is. It is. Yeah. Just saw that. Read the screen, Brett. Read the screen. So it actually, and it's actually designed with Zoom so that it puts that double image as the speaker view. So you actually have the presenter and then the 360 shot, which is great when you have that classroom environment. Now, I don't have this kind of budget in my market center, so that's why I researched these other options, and I use 2 cameras with a stream deck and the features of Zoom so that I can switch back and forth between a presenter and a classroom shot. But that's a really cool piece too. And then similar to what we were talking about with using the whiteboard feature of Zoom, there is actually an amazing board. Again, we have a certain price point here that won't work for everybody, but will certainly work for some market centers. And this Vibe board is awesome. It's a 55-inch monitor that has an Android tablet built in, and it works as like a standalone computer. And it can actually be wall mounted as well. So you could have your Zoom audience on here. You can share from here. Because it is a completely separate Android device, it can actually be logged into Zoom completely on its own. So those are some other options. All right. One thing, and again, this will be on my products list, but I thought I'd go ahead and put this in here anyway. And that is, let's see, Acoustic Magic. This is the microphone that we use right here. B&H Photo Video. I don't know if any of you guys utilize that resource for the tech people that are on this session, but this is an amazing piece of technology. And again, it's not always the high-tech latest thing, right? This has been around since 2001. And one of my MCTTs brought it to my attention. And this, 20-year-old camera or microphone at this point is still absolutely blows away any other type of microphone that I've used. I can centrally locate this in a training room, and you can whisper in the corners of, say, a medium to large size training room, and it's still picking you up. So this is an absolute, this is by far is the first thing that we go to when we plan out one of the training room upgrades. So let me get back to here. And there's my information again. Please feel free to reach out to me. Email me so that I have your contact information and I can send you that product list. Or, if you need to reach out to Janelle, I'm not sure how we want to handle that, but you can reach out to either her or me and, by email, and then I will reply with those product lists. Any questions or ahas?
I had a lot of ahas. I mean, this was really amazing, Brett. I always am just like so amazed by you. This was really, really cool. I love all the transformations.
No, I appreciate that. You're too kind, Janelle. Too kind. I just like playing with hardware. I've always been a gadget guy. So, honestly, how I came into it, my dad was a banker when I was a kid, and I didn't have money to buy a new computer. So his bank was getting rid of an old computer system and all the hardware. So I got this really old computer and I learned how to build it because I couldn't afford to buy one. And that's how all this started.
I swear we're like so much the same. That's exactly what happened with me. I mean, my computer would break and then I would have to fix it myself. So
right.
That's probably why we're both nerds.
Exactly. And proud of it.
Proud of it. Yeah. I think we have some comments. Brett, Joe is trying to reconnect with you. He's going to put you in touch with with his TL. And Adrian said that it was really great that he's looking to upgrade his training room as well. So that's awesome. And Rick loved the Stream Deck idea.
Awesome. Yeah, those Stream Decks are really cool. I actually have all 3 sizes. I keep the Stream Deck XL, the really big one, here on my main battle station, as we call it, right, that I'm at every day. And then this is actually the Stream Deck Mini, which is great for when we're traveling and we still want to have those functions with us. So even though there's only 6 buttons on this, they're designed so that you program one button to a page and you actually have unlimited pages of buttons. So it's really handy. I launch all my apps that way. I open Chrome that way. I have the full. So, you know, one of the things when we're leading a Zoom call is I got to mute all because I can't figure out whose dog's barking in the background, right? I can program that to a button on the Stream Deck, one button, mute everybody, and we're good to go. I really enjoyed this. Thank you, Janelle. I love talking tech, and I appreciate everybody chiming in and the engagement from everybody.
Thank you so much. And I may just bother you for some of these resources so I can send them to some of these people that may want it. And I know that people are going to watch some recordings and want it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll get that to you. I think what I'll do, unless anybody does email, I'll just send it to you directly when I get it done so that you have it as well. Okay.
That's perfect.
And I'll tell you the next step of where this is going is in this company of systematizing everything that we're in, right? Because if you create it as a system, it can be replicated and duplicated. The next step that I'm in right now is creating this as a system with the installer's toolbox, the tools, the hardware list, all of that. Because I am pushing 50 and getting up and down those ladders all the time is wearing on my body. It takes me a couple of days to stand up straight after I do one of these installs. So I would love to be able to, teach it around the country to other regions and kind of implement an army of Market Center of the Future consultants and installers. Save my back.
I love that.
So are we wrapped up at 4 or we go to 4:15? Sorry. I'm an hour ahead, so I'm lost.
Yeah. So right now, Joe McHugh and Kimber Walton and Evan Ransom are going to do the money raised in AHAs. So awesome. That will be at 3:15. So we have some 15 minutes if y'all want to go take a little break and then come back and see that. I know that they would really appreciate the support.
Yeah, I'm going to catch them. I love Labs Advisors Live.
Me too.
I love watching that. So, well, thanks again, everybody. I appreciate it. Janelle, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. All right. I will see you later.
All right. Bye-bye.